It being 6 o'clock on Tuesday, December the 14th, I call to order the regular meeting of the Wenatchee School District Board of Directors and ask that we stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I welcome everyone to this board meeting and thank you for joining us. Les doy a todos una bienvenida a esta reunión de la Mesa Directiva del Distrito Escolar. Gracias por su asistencia. The meeting is conducted in English, but we do have translation services so that anyone who wants to make a citizen comment in Spanish, it can be translated and repeated into English. I will quickly describe this in Spanish and make this a routine as a service that we provide. Si alguien quiere hacer su comentario de ciudadano o recibir explicaciones en español, tenemos disponible un servicio de traducción. Favor indicar su pedido a mí o comunicar via mensaje electrónico a Kim White. Also, in the superintendent's report at the end of the meeting, Paul Gordon will bring us up to date on other efforts that the district is making to improve how board proceedings are communicated to everybody in the public, both in English and in Spanish. This is the first meeting of the year for the newly organized board. In January, Tricia Lubach, Leadership Director for the Washington State School Directors Association, will lead us through a full workshop on board norms and best practices for effective working relationships. But as the presiding officer, I wish once to express 4 hopes and expectations for a nonpartisan collegiate board. First of all, we all need to key off our oath of office. Our job is to promote the interests of education. Let's remember to represent and act for all the different people in the school district community, those heard and those unheard, those whose paths we do not cross, as much as those whose paths we know well. Team building, the interactive power of 5 people thinking with open and independent minds, adding the superintendent and the district as the 6th player, is a machine for discovering unimagined outcomes. Team building. And finally, for when we engage in board discussion, I'm a believer that mutual benefit solutions are optimal in the long run, and I appeal for this mindset. So that's a very short introduction, which I hope will help us have a very constructive year. Thank you very much for listening to that. I believe there is one change being requested to the agenda to have the Education Northwest contract be a separate action item. Unless there are any other requests from the board members to modify the agenda, I will proceed to the consents. Okay. The consent agenda includes the minutes from the 15th of November board workshop, the 23rd of November regular meeting. It includes the vouchers approved for payment as listed in the attachment. It includes the November payroll, the November personnel report, the surplus report dated December the 6th, and contracts as listed in the schedule. It also includes 3 field trips. That is our consent agenda. Do I have any motion to approve that?
I move for approval of the consent agenda as you presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second, but I guess ask a question. It's the consent agenda as amended by pulling out the contract.
As amended with the Education Northwest contract as a separate action item. Yes, that's correct.
And
I modify my motion.
And I'll second the modified motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Will all those in support signify by saying aye? I will call a one-by-one vote if it's not clear.
Aye.
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 Aye. I guess we did it one by one. Okay. I hit the wrong button. Turn it off instead of on. I believe that we have one in-person request for a citizen comment that will be related to the action item on the equity contract. And I think it would be appropriate for us to listen to that citizen comment first. So Kim, are you, and I'm not sure who is ready to give that comment. I just know there's one person in the audience. Okay, I'm Mr. Brett. There are 3 minutes allocated for your comment, and Kim will keep touch with that. Let her signal when you're ready, and we are all ears and wish to listen to you. Thank you very much.
Hello. Okay, my name is Brad Burke. And this equity audit is not required. There was only one bid presented. No competing bids were presented to the board. The proposed contract is questionable, and there is no science behind any benefits of such an audit. This equity issue is a politically inspired, divisive, and polarizing topic that elicits emotional responses. And this equity audit idea was basically presented and rapidly ushered through at a previous board meeting without adequate time for responsible consideration. I ask, what is going on? So at a time of declining student enrollment, why does this school board think it is fiscally responsible to spend funds for an equity audit that is not required by the state, and moreover, where it is not even able to present competing bids? So not only do we have an ill-defined goal that this proposed audit is meant to achieve, we are not certain if there even exists any scientific or statistically significant data that such an audit will improve the education, raise the standard for our students, but now the superintendent cannot even provide this board with competing bids. Bottom line is this: the elephant in the room is that this suggested audit was never previously proven to have benefit, nor is it required by law. It's an added cost, and why was it even proposed? The elephant is the question, why? The only possible answer is that the superintendent believes it will benefit and promote the far-left political agenda of a social justice ideology he adheres to. We have bowed already to the state's requirement for racial justice, social justice training, both Marxist and anti-American origins. Now, should we be spending approximately $200,000 for extra brownie points to go even further down this septic rabbit hole? Why does the school board wish to fix a problem that does not exist? Does this superintendent wish to create more distrust and confusion in our community, as well as spend funds on this folly? So at a time of declining student enrollment, why does this school board think that it is fiscally responsible to spend funds for an equity audit that is not required by the state, and moreover, it doesn't even present competing bids? Is it wise for the school board to continue to consider this equity audit that will only serve to further alienate and polarize our community? This money would be far better used by teachers for educating. And okay, I just believe it destabilizes and tears down our public education.
Thank you very much for coming here and for giving us your words and opinion. I believe that is the only comment we have available on that subject.
We have one online.
Online on the same subject, or we do it later?
We'll just do it now.
All right. All right. Go ahead and do it now then. Thanks, Kim. I believe this is Brian Higgins. Brian, when you're ready, if you can identify yourself and then initiate your comment.
Yeah, my name is Brian Higgins. I teach at Wenatchee High School, and I live on South Medhouse Street. Usually I pull over for this part of the conversation, so sorry about the extra volume. I wanted to give a couple shout outs for a couple things that happened this week and last week. First off, Martin Barron, I want to say thank you again for coming into my Audit class and taking part in our class and performing as a student in that class and seeing what it's like to be an Avid student. It was super impactful for our students to see our leadership come in and just be a part of the regular school day. And it helps them to realize that our leadership really does care about what's going on in our classroom. So thank you very much. I also want to say thank you to Janelle Bailey and Wilbert Ochoa at Foothills Middle School. I had a chance to go down there. Hello?
You're still coming through.
Okay, thank you. I had a chance to go to Foothills Middle School today on behalf of our Avid program district-wide, just to check in with those teachers and check our alignment that we have all across our middle school and our high school level. I'll be going to Pioneer Middle School and Orchard Middle School this week and after break as well. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to those teachers and to Mark Govea for his time. One, for making time for me. Two, for making time for their students and helping our Avid district-wide program be effective and align even more strongly. And I just wanted to say that I was so impressed by the 8th graders that I met with today and talked with that I am super optimistic about Avid next year when I teach them as freshmen. So thank you very much to all of those people. Oh, and one last shout out to Aida Bound with the Hat Project. She's been coming into my Avid class for 4 years to help students loom hats for our community and take part in some really effective and engaging community involvement, community service. So a big shout out to her as well. So thank you very much for everyone for supporting the program and helping our students really get their fingers in being effective community and civic-minded community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and safe driving. Okay, I believe that is all the comments we have for this meeting. So I will move on to action item, the Education Northwest contract. This contract is for $180,000, $188. It is the version with on-site and in-person focus group time and meetings, and includes these changes that resulted from yesterday's workshop. A revised schedule of payments based on deliverables, and in the scope, specific reference to and alignment with the measurable 6 future-ready outcomes of the strategic plan. These were amendments made from the original draft as a result of yesterday's board workshop. That is the nature of summary nature, more of title of the contract that is open for approval.
Given the work session that we had, was it work session? Workshop, sorry. The world colliding. Given the workshop that we had yesterday, I would like to make in the great discussion that we had yesterday, I would like to make a motion to approve the Education Northwest contract.
Thank you, Maria. Do we have a second for that motion?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. It having been proposed and seconded, I now open this up for discussion by any and all board members.
I do want to say that I appreciate the public comment that was made this evening regarding the connection to student learning, because in our workshop yesterday, that was extremely important to me, that this work shouldn't be done just for the sake of doing the work, but that should be just, tied to our strategic initiatives. And, we focus on having students reading at grade level. That's extremely important. Students ready for algebra, students ready for kindergarten. We asked for a revision of the contract so that it is now tied to those strategic objectives and student achievement, which was paramount importance to me. So I am now much more comfortable with the contract as a whole.
So I appreciated having that workshop. I thought it was a great opportunity to learn more about the process and what to expect. I wish we had had it before the RFP went out in some ways, so that we could communicate the importance of tying it back to the education related goals and the big 6. So I think that was helpful. I struggled with some of their responses and whether they really truly get it. I appreciate the revisions that they made hearing us, certainly. My thought going in was that was what it was about to begin with. So to have to, at the last minute, kind of flip it, I don't know that they've internalized that in their process yet. So my concern continues to be, this is really important work. I want to make sure it gets done right. It's a, a ton of money, and I know we're using our CARES funds for it, but as we heard that this is a potential phase one of a two-phase process. So, what is the expectation in phase two? Are we going it alone with, no more financing available? So I still have a little bit of sticker shock, especially when, to me, the most important part of it was the on-site that was, again, only added in this last part of it. I really felt like that should have been maybe what we went out with. So I appreciate them listening to us, making those changes and adjusting based on our needs and explaining things to us. I wasn't totally confident in a lot of their answers in what they may, how they're going to discern policy from practice in some cases. And again, whether they internalized how we want it related back to the academic performance issues. So I have some concerns on that level, but then my other major concern that I had at the outset when we first discussed the contract was just the impact on, the timeline being so condensed for this type of work and the value that we need from it. It was very clear in the conversation that a lot of the burden is going to be on the district to make sure surveys are answered, focus groups are, and I appreciated them saying, oh, it's not that much time, but I'm not a teacher in a class that's already running at wit's end or covering 6 classes to know if that's a burden. I can tell you now as a parent, if I had to spend another 30 minutes on a survey after spending an hour on our, forget what they call that time now for the littles, it's a lot we're asking parents to do during this time. And I know we're doing some work on the physical safety side of things because of all these threats. So we've got, learning recovery, physical safety concerns going on. So I still struggle with, is this the best time knowing what is going on? But that's really what it comes down to. I know we need to do the work. I don't want to punt the ball. I don't want to keep punting because I recognize the value and importance, but I think it was really important that we get it done right. So.
Thanks, Julie. Those are good comments. Catherine?
Thank you. I would like to echo everything that Julie said. She's spoken much more eloquently than I could, but I'd also like to add a few thoughts myself. I was not here on the board for the initial approval of this and wanting to have it done. I, like Julie, would have liked a lot more information before a vote was taken. And the real problem I have with the entire audit is, after having read Evergreen's audit and their results, they didn't give any actionable items, in my opinion. We're going to get this information, and we are probably going to find out, as they did at Evergreen, that we don't have as many teachers of color as we do students of color, that the lower income students that we have struggle more, that the homeless students that we have struggle more. I think we're going to find out all of this information, and all of that is accurate. What are we going to do with that information? I didn't think there were very clear actionable items in the Evergreen audit that said, okay, we know this now, now we're going to do this. So that's where I struggle. I want to know what we're going to do with that information. What actual things are we going to do as a school district, as a school board, with the information that we learn? That's my concern.
Thank you, Catherine.
I think the reason we're in need of an audit review is because we know what the data shows us. Catherine just pointed it out. So we already know this is happening in our district. And like Martin just said at the beginning of the board meeting, we are here to serve all students, those heard and not heard. We've allowed our unheard population to go unheard for way too long. This audit is, or review is gonna allow us to open the door and identify how we can better serve those students that are not heard. And those students are the ones that are not showing on our meeting standard in our district data, or the ones that are overrepresented in some categories. again, this is a board value that the previous board sat in a work session and we talked about it. What is really surprising to me is that we spent 3 meetings now talking about the work of equity. And the reality is that we're going to, because it's a board value, we're going to continue having these conversations. And it's scary to me that we are questioning it so much, but it's so evident that this work is needed. There is scholarly research, and it's actually by very highly regarded universities and scholars that prove that equity reviews are successful and they do support and address the opportunity gap across districts and across school communities. That data is not very hard to find. So I encourage my teammates to look at those scholarly articles. Like I said, they're not hard to find. And I really feel that the review is going to help the district identify and give us the next step on how are we removing pragmatic barriers that impede all of our students to participate and have access and give our students that equitable opportunity for an excellence education. One of the things that Laura said at the couple meetings ago was, when we first started talking about the review, was that we want to be a world-class district. And until we give a voice to our unheard students, we're not going to get there. And we cannot use the excuse of time, because there's never going to be a right time. Like I said, we are 20 years behind on this topic because that opportunity gap hasn't really changed much in the last 20 years in our district. And it's really sad because our community continues to evolve and change, and it's just going to get worse unless we really take a step into it. One of the other things that I really appreciated hearing is that, aside from the financial aspect of it, is that there's actually going to be a possibility of a phase 2, because that means that we're not going to just check the box, and we're going to hopefully hold ourselves accountable for following the work and the recommendations from phase 1 of the review.
Thank you, Maria. I do have my own comments, but I'd like to hold them until everybody has had a chance to speak. Okay, and then in that case, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to begin by stipulating that horrible legal word, that, as Julie says, we don't want to rush it. And I'm going to look at Paul. In the discussion yesterday, I made the comment that a lot of this is on us. It's not easy, and we have to nurture and care and handle it and do it well, the back end of the job. Quoting from the consultants, one of the reasons that I liked the very first words, and I joked, this was, they said, a review of equity is never neutral because none of us are neutral. So this is difficult work, what we see, what we don't see, how we try to work together. So I'm going to stipulate that we have data that shows we need help. We have data from everywhere that shows that fairness or equity or diversity and inclusion matters. And I'm going to move right away to what's called rational self-interest. At a previous meeting, I read from major corporations' diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. These major corporations think this is serious business, and that's how they are going to be productive and competitive. So I'm going to get off the fairness one and onto the self-interest one about the efficient use of resources and talent. And I'm going to do it by analogy. I'm the only male on this board. I believe we all recognize yesterday and even today's story of equity advances for women. That's a comparative one where people began using resources and it benefited everybody. I just want to refer to one study. It's a 2019 study from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business that really got my attention. This is not from any left-wing institution. Milton Friedman was from the University of Chicago. On the allocation of talent and economic growth. It estimated that between 20 and 40% of the productivity gains in the United States between 1960 and 2010 are explained by the better use of talent from women and marginalized demographic groups. Now, you've got to qualify this a little bit, because for women, this would be both quantity, bringing them into the workplace and out of unpaid jobs. And also it's a mixture of quality and of the quality and the skill and people performing and improving productivity. There's tons of evidence that we are failing people and missing resources, and we have lots of peers who realize that good work on diversity, equity, and inclusion is productive for everybody. And that's what we're seeking. That's what I think we're seeking, and I'm indicating my position. And having had a chance, I would like to open it up if any other board member wanted to make a different comment.
If I could, I would just jump in and address a couple of the comments that were made. Julie brought up the concern around the direct connection to academic achievement, as Laura spoke about yesterday. For those who know me, some know me better than others. You know, I consider myself somewhat of an academic nerd. I love getting into the research. When we put out the RFP, we knew there were levers to improve academic outcomes. Those levers are the curriculum, are those discipline reviews, are the instructional practices, are the hiring practices, are the access to grade level instruction and access to advanced and beyond. We knew that, and so does the researchers at Education Northwest. Those levers within our system impact those big six. Was it explicitly called out in the proposal? No. But we know, based off of countless research studies, when students see themselves in the curriculum, they're more engaged in the curriculum. When students see themselves in their bus drivers, in their teachers, in their principals, they have more opportunities to belong, to be seen, and to be valued. When they make sure that we're having access to grade level and beyond instruction, and when we have a higher proportion of students, of all different students in our advanced and honors courses, we're a better organization. We know these levers, these different areas impact student outcomes. Not Paul Gordon saying it. Tons of research supports this. Catherine, I think you bring up a really good point. And you hold me accountable to this, that we have outcomes. So when your point around hiring and recruiting, yeah, we know where we're at right now. What we need and where we're going to be pushing them is how do we transform that? And I know this is a long-term obligation. This is not next year we're going to have an increase of 50 Latino teachers, this and that. We know that, but we have to start putting in practices and policies in place that will slowly, over time, make sure that we're looking at our interviewing practices. Where are we putting out information? Who's engaged in those conversations? Who's applying for our jobs? All of that information we have to get better at that. And that's something our HR team and myself and others will be engaged in. But hold me accountable that when we get that review, that it has those actionable steps in it, because that's part of the RFP, that there are actionable steps, that it's not just some nebulous, hey, guess what? You have a very disproportionate number of educators who are one subset or another. It is those steps. So I will make sure that we have that, because that is part of the RFP that's in the proposal, are those action steps. And Julie, you're right. You know, that next piece going into next year and beyond, because it's not going to be a one-year fix. It is going to take time. It is going to take resources. But that's what a strategic plan does as well. We have a set dollar amount, and how are we choosing to use those dollars? And those are going to be hard conversations about how to budget allocations. But as Maria said, two boards supported the idea of equity as their value. When you have values, that's what drives budgeting. A budget is a value statement. It's what is a board, what is a business, what is whatever believe in. That's truly the values that that organization holds. This board, in all other, the previous two boards, their value was equity, and we need to really make sure that each student, when I think about equity, I think equity is about belonging, that kids see themselves, that kids feel safe, seen, and valued and heard. All kids, not just one group of students. Each and every student in our organization sees themselves. We've talked about our academic data. We've been very transparent with our academic data. It's not great. It's not great. We have to do something. We have a lot within our strategic plan. The equity audit is not the silver bullet. I am not here to tell you because we do the equity audit in June, we're going to have rainbows and sunshine. That is not it. It will give us a pathway forward in these areas, along with all the other hard work we have in our strategic plan. I think the combination of our strategic plan, which the equity audit is a part of, but those other areas around improvement in math and literacy and SEL, and now having this equity audit, all those pieces coming together, that's where I believe our strategic plan is powerful and impactful to the lives of our students.
Thank you, Paul. Before we move to the vote, I will offer a last opportunity for any comment.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Paul, for some of that clarification, because based on the presentation and kind of the materials we've seen so far, I was concerned it was a little more on the statistical side and not, I had interpreted the implementation policy recommendation side to be sort of that phase 2 work that they were referencing, which I agree is a lion's share of work. And I have no expectation that it's a quick fix or by any means. So that's positive to hear. And I don't want anyone to misconstrue that I don't object to the project itself or the need for the project, or that it's part of our strategic plan, or that it's something the district needs. I have just been concerned in not understanding it really until we've now had these conversations. B, the timing of such important work and really cramming it into one semester with maybe looking at their deliverable schedule, 2 months of data collection, which I assume includes their on-site visits. I'd feel much more comfortable if there was a way to extend this schedule. I could care less if we start now or start February, if we can extend the schedule to make sure that we're getting quality participation and work. We gave ourselves 2 years in the strategic plan, I think recognizing this is a big project and undertaking. I am not necessarily saying delay for delay's sake. I don't have any issue starting. It's truly just that amount of work in that compressed time, getting the quality that we need to really, move the district in the right direction. That's, I'm not an expert in this area. I recognize that. So I don't know, maybe 2 months is reasonable, but I'm just looking at our resources and what we're asking everybody to do to make that work. And it feels like a lot. I know, it's important work, so we have to do hard work. But that sort of continues to be my concern. And I don't know if there's flexibility on the deliverable timelines or anything we can do there.
Paul, could you comment on that, whether there is any mutual flexibility as we progress through the calendar on this contract?
Yeah, I believe so. In my conversation after the workshop yesterday with them, I believe there is that flexibility. We have the set price. It kind of goes to Julie. I think Julie said this yesterday. Here's the amount we're approving, 108, don't quote me on the number, 180,000. Here are the deliverables, get it done, without the saying it has to all be done by June. I believe that is something that they would work with, if that would, paraphrasing a little bit of what you said yesterday.
A comment that I didn't make, sorry, you can go, Catherine, as soon as I made this quick comment. One of the things that I did impress me in terms of the qualifications and honesty of Education Northwest was their comment that measuring inequities doesn't create solutions, and they referred to the federal government efforts in this field. And so I think that recognizes the phase two, that it's on us, the points that you bring, that this is for the real world. Catherine Nagu.
And in that same vein, and please forgive me if I'm getting too much in the minutia, but Maria, my question and to everyone as well is, as you speak about the unheard population, which is critical, how are we going to get them to speak in this and participate in this? I agree with you, there is an unheard population, and we do need to hear from them and hear what they need and what will make their students' educations better. But how are we going to get them to be heard and to speak when it's been such a problem so far?
Well, that was more of a hypothetical comment.
But I don't think it is. I mean, I think that's an important part. How are we going to ensure that there's participation from the people that are most marginalized?
Yeah, and that was one of the questions that I asked yesterday, because oftentimes we tend to use email surveys, which only really targets a specific population. And so then, like they mentioned, and I agree, I can speak for a good majority of the Latino community. They feel more comfortable speaking to somebody that looks like them, that identifies with them better, that speaks their language. And so here, I was glad we saw the group of from Northwest that they have bilingual staff. And so if it requires them, that's why I asked also, are the parent surveys, is there going to be interviews? So that was added to the contract as well. So, I mean, I'm not going to say how that work's going to be done, because that's why they're getting the big bugs. But that was actually addressed yesterday by saying, yeah, they were going to do interview groups. And then they talked about maybe attending probably the migrant PAC meetings, probably Avid Night. So yes, our district has some resources, but we're going to have to work beyond sending an email survey, which doesn't really work for our students that are marginalized and their families.
Great question. I think the one thing that we've done a nice job of in recent months, up to the past year and a half, is doing a better job of reaching out to all of our community members. And it looks very different. It is no longer just emails. It's paper. It's going to our PAC meetings. It's working with our migrant bilingual liaisons. It's working with our homeless liaisons. It's working with our staff. And it's also incumbent upon our board members to be championing the work as well, and pushing the work out, and making sure that everybody knows there's this opportunity to have that voice. But I'm proud of the work, and really championed by Diana Haglin, our Director of Communications, of transforming how we communicate, from being on various radio stations, from kind of the general big radio stations in our area, KPQ, Coho, to our Spanish radio stations, which we'll also speak about later, to being on Facebook Live with Cafe, working with Parques Padrinos, really literally being in the parks, really being out in person and doing this work is very different than where when I first started, where we're at. So we've made huge inroads in that area. And I appreciate what Maria said as well. It's still about relationships. And that's why I lean on everybody. It is about relationships and getting that message out there, and making sure that that we have Education Northwest who can engage our community in English, Spanish, in various different ways as well. Great question.
And just to kind of answer your question there, just because they're not heard doesn't mean we're just going to not try to get their voice out. So, as a leader, as a board member, just for me, this work is about being a proactive leader and really assessing and addressing how we can improve as a district. how are we going to address those cultural, the linguistic, and also the socioeconomic dynamics that our district has had and currently faces and needs to address as a board?
I agree with you that that's absolutely critical. Again, this equity audit is useless if we don't hear from that demographic of people. So for me, that it is the minutia of it, and how Northwest Education Northwest will have to work very hard to make that happen. As Paul was saying, that it's been a lot of change through the years of trying to get that community heard. I couldn't agree more. Again, my point was only to say that they must be heard, and how do we best make that happen?
Right. I just have one question, if that's okay.
One more then, yeah.
Their proposal is for 4 days on site. Is that correct? I guess that makes me a little nervous in that, is that enough time to really engage these groups and do these face-to-face meetings, especially with some of these communities, and realizing COVID folks may still be uncomfortable going out and meeting in groups. So again, why the timing is just feels a little off to me during this period, but.
I think my only answer to that is, these are people who've done this. They're the ones who recommended the 4 days. So I don't have a better answer than that.
I'm going to speak personally, and then I think we'll be ready to vote. There are two sides to this that I heard. There's a lot of uncertainty as to how we can do it and how well we can do it. It's not easy, as Catherine said, to reach out. And I don't think at this stage we have the answers. You heard what I was saying, acting that this is an untapped resource of improvement that we really, really, really need, and fairness and equity that we really need to bring to the table. So it'll be a partnership between us and Education Northwest. They have a lot of knowledge about how to do things, but then the foot soldiers will be a lot of us. And by analogy again, it was interesting. I was talking to an after-school leader, talking about how much more contact they had with families as a result of COVID. So I think we've learned quite a lot about how to reach out to families and students in the last painful 24 months. We've got to use that. And I don't underestimate the difficulty of getting a really good response. But I think that we have to go into this. Really, it is our priority. It's a strategic priority. It's a human priority, and it's an efficiency priority. And I personally am prepared to go in with a certain amount of uncertainty with what appears to be a competent partner and go for it. So I think that's my way of assessing both your reservations and concerns, and hoping that, looking for the benefit of the entire community, that we can put it together and do it well. You turn my microphone back on, I'll get worse as it goes on instead of better, I think. I can't remember which order I did last time because I can't remember which of the numbers of the districts, but Julie, I'm going to look at you first, and I'm going to call one by one for a vote on the motion.
We do need roll call vote on this?
You can do it all.
Last time it seemed to be more efficient to speak one at a time so that I could count.
Okay.
I can say all those in favor to signify aye. Will you do that?
Aye.
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 And aye. Okay. Well, thank you all very, very much. And I pardon the awkwardness in collecting votes.
Board, thank you. And I just want to, I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate the direction you're giving me and as we go forward. So thank you for the robust conversation yesterday and for today. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the first read of a number of policies, and I'm in awe of the list. It looks like the policy committee is firing on all cylinders. I don't know whether it's all Catherine and Maria, or whether some of or Michelle has some credit from before while she was still in office, and thank Kim and the staff for the support. But at any rate, that is our next item, and do one or other you want to introduce the policies?
Yeah, I'll take it right
Okay,
here
thank you.
and go. So this feels like it happened like 5 years ago. It was at the beginning of November when these policies were reviewed. So we're bringing those forward now. So the first one is our LAP program. And really what this policy is doing is making sure that we have continued flexibility in how those dollars are spent. I think a great example of that was the summer school program. In years past, the LAP dollars could only be spent for a certain population of students. Through this policy, it expanded it and allowed us to open up summer school for all students. And we had our largest summer school ever through that policy change. The high school, the waiver high school graduation requirements, this too is kind of coming out of the COVID world where OSPI allowed us to waive 2 of the 24 required credits. What they're doing with this policy is no longer making this a temporary policy or an emergency policy. That this policy allows us moving forward to be able to do that. However, it literally states in here that we take the good faith steps in making sure that we're doing everything possible to support our students before there's ever any waiver of credits for a student. The next piece is 3122, excused and unexcused. This is really just changing the 2 impacts. The first is that we cannot file a truancy petition earlier than 7 unexcused absences in a month. And it used to be 5. And the next one is no later than 15 unexcused absences in a school year. 3231 all the way down to 6800. In years past, policies allowed us to withhold transcripts and all kinds of other things if students didn't pay, if there was a myriad of other things occurring. We can no longer hold transcripts. Transcripts must be moved forward. Diplomas, yes, but transcripts must be sent on if they're being requested by another organization, another school district, or college, university. We cannot hold those because someone didn't pay a fine or some other reason. So those are all part of that same kind of thinking. 3116, it really is changing language. It used to be students out of home foster care, moving it into foster care. In a little bit of a few other little wording aspects there. The next 2 are staff development, the training with the board, the different policies, the Senate Bill 5044 around the training for equity, diversity, and inclusion, and then 5520, the staff development there with the model policies. And then finally, 5515, which is the workforce secondary traumatic stress. And we gave an example. We had a great question by one of our board members on that. We're doing our well-being project that launched last year with a sponsorship of Executive Director Mike Lane and countless other community partners. So that will continue forward. Whew, I'm going to breathe.
Okay, that's
No
a,
questions, right? Nothing.
that's a lot. If we have questions, reservations, or a need for clarification, the floor is open. And if not, these will then move for a second reading and a formal acceptance at the next board meeting. I do want to make one comment myself, training and development for board members. Some of this is new requirement under law, and we will have to set up our own timetable and make sure we go to school properly.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I think what I'm going to do is take these papers, so I happen to have a hard copy, and study them thoroughly prior to the next meeting and provide any comments by email before the second reading.
Okay, thank you.
So just something to note is that all of these policies are based on a House or a Senate bill.
Great clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were not Wenatchee School District changes. These are state level
Thank you, legislative rep and guru. The next item is board communication, when it's customary for board members to share and tell the community and each other anything that's on their heart or what they've been observing and seeing. And step forward or signal when you want to speak.
I'll go this way. First, I want to say I had the privilege of showing up to see a part of the sign language caroling today at PIBIS, and that was great. So I really appreciate for the staff to get us those invites when opportunities arise, because it's really special to go see that, and the students did a wonderful job. I'm starting to get busy as ledge rep now, going over some webinars that from trying to catch up on what's been going on the last year. Just participated in a live webinar for the talking a little bit about budgeting updates. There's going to be a short legislative session starting in January, but it's real short, so not a lot of budget related items will be on there. So despite all these new mandates and programs and things that we have to offer, we're not going to see really any changes in funding allocations or sources or anything, or that's the expectation, at least for this session. So a lot of this session is going to be really to tee up for the 2023. God, are you going to be in 2023 for the next session? So I'm coming up to speed on that, and I know we'll need to look at our district priorities and be prepared to share those with the greater group around February, March. So that's all I got for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So I also caught a little bit of Miss Meadows' ASL concert. Yes, we like getting invitations to those. And I also attended a strings concert, virtual string concert this week. Thank you to Ms. Vaughn and Ms. Kirker for that from Washington Elementary. Also want to say thank you to all of our classified and certified teachers or staff. As we go into this break, hopefully everybody gets to enjoy some downtime and not have to think about work, and get some good rest and relaxation time. And I'm sure our kiddos will miss happy faces over the break, and will be eager to return in January.
Well, good, because I will take your time.
Okay, you got it.
Well, first of all, and I want to say thank you to Martin and to Laura for giving of your time to meet with me individually so that we could get to know each other better. I'm very grateful, and I appreciate your kindness and your offering of that time to me. And further to that, Maria and I will be getting together next week, hopefully, as we discussed, so I look forward to that. Julie, we've gotten together too much already, so so I just wanted to take time to thank you for that. Furthermore, I want to thank Dr. Gordon and Kim for setting up the appointments that they have for me. I felt very strongly that to learn about being on the board, I needed to learn the schools. And so I purposed to make time available to visit all the schools. And at present, I visited 4 schools, and I have 9 more appointments on my calendar for the next few schools. And I look forward to them very, very much, because I cannot tell you how wonderful it has been to have gone to the 4 schools that I've gone to. So please, if you'll indulge me for a minute, what I wanted to do was have prepared questions for each principal that I met with before we toured their school. Because I, again, am learning and have so much to learn from them. So I prepared simple questions for myself. What's the very best thing about your school? What's the very worst thing about your school? What does your school need the most? What is your ratio of teachers to ancillary staff? When and how are your parent volunteers working in your schools, and have they been allowed to return? Does your school have any coordination with service clubs in the community? Could you see them as being beneficial to your students' education? And my final question, which took up the back of the page for each one, was what do you want me as a board member to know? What do you want the school board to know? How can we best serve you? And how can I help facilitate that and be a part of it? So wow, I mean, just wow. These principals, I can't say enough wonderful things about them. I started at Orchard Middle School, and Orchard holds a very special place in my heart. I'm embarrassed to say that my daughter was planned in the district to go to Orchard, and I had family members that said, oh, no matter what, don't go to Orchard. She's got to go to Pioneer. She's got a choice to somewhere else. And that's primarily because of athletics. My family is big into athletics, and Avery's done a lot of sports, so we wanted to make that available for her best way possible. Thankfully, no one in her class from Washington Elementary in 5th grade could choice anywhere else. And it was the greatest blessing ever. I cannot say enough about the staff and the educators at Orchard Middle School. I was privileged to meet with Principal Brown. We spent over an hour and a half talking and going to classrooms. What's going on at her school is incredible. Just a few things just right off the bat. She has 420 students. The very best thing about her school, in her opinion, is her staff and how they know each student and that the kids want to be there. It is the most stable environment that they have. 70% of her students live in poverty. That is a shocking and devastating number. But I can tell you that I know firsthand that how much that staff cares for all of their students. Just as an example of that, they've started something called Billy's Thrift Shop at Orchard Middle School. This is a thrift shop to help with the students and the families that are at that school. And this is a OMS staff payroll deduction that they are allowed to fill out. And the staff at Orchard Middle School is having money deducted from their paychecks to help provide for their students. That is just one example of how much they care at Orchard. And like I said, it was amazing to hear her answers to these questions. They're having team time daily for teachers there because of what we talked about, the trauma that the educators have felt through this COVID time. They're having a mentor class on Mondays with 15 students apiece. And these students have an individual mentor that meets with them on Mondays and then again on Fridays to check in and see how they're doing. I mean, the things that they are doing are just remarkable. But one of the things that she said, this is her 28th year as an educator, and this has been her hardest year. That's another stunning statement to me. But she also, the one statement that I circled in her, and all 4 of these pages was, I think something that we have to keep in mind, because it's a balancing act, but what is hard is that she is finding that schools are asked to be everything to everyone, everything to every student, and they can't be. So I found that also a really remarkable, stunning statement, and I think it's important for us to remember we cannot be everything to every student. We may want to be, we may try, but it's not going to be possible. One of the exciting things I'm sure you all know about, and forgive me if I'm telling you things you already know, but the career and tech education. Every 8th grader goes on a field trip once a month to different areas. They've been to Vanwell Nursery, CMI, and different healthcare facilities. Next is coming family and consumer services, like gyms and hotels and motels, to get an idea of what a career could look like for them on through after high school. And I think that's just so critical because there are so many different routes that our students can go after they go through high school. So one thing I do want to note, the first classroom that we went to was Avery's 6th grade math teacher, and we absolutely adore him. He is wonderful, and I think instilled in her a love for math, and she really excels at math now for that, or I'm sure partly because of that. I came into the back of the classroom with Principal Brown, and even with the microphones on, I was stunned that I could not understand what he was saying. In the back of the classroom, even with his microphone, because of the masking, I couldn't understand what he was saying. And I want to make the point that I am afraid that we will deeply regret not having tried harder to end the masks in some way, form or fashion, particularly after I visited the elementary schools and saw these littles, as you call them, trying to understand what their teacher was saying and learn phonics and learn reading and without with having the mask over the teacher's face and over the children's face. So that's just a point that I want to make, because I visited minimum 20 different classrooms in these 4 schools. And that was striking to me, because it is impairing their education. And I think that, as COVID did, it's something that we're going to have to think about moving forward. As Principal Brown said, she believes her students are 2 years behind. And I'm afraid that is not helping, that is hurting. So next I went to Valley Academy and Newberry Elementary. Valley Academy, very interesting to learn about that. They kind of feel like they're out there alone a little bit and would like to be involved more and heard a little bit more, but went into every classroom at that school, and that was really, really neat with Principal Leverkamp. Next was Newberry Elementary, and boy, does Principal Yanez have a fantastic story. He actually went to elementary school here and moved around quite a bit, and ends up now back, he went in one of the first years as a student to Newberry and is now the principal. He has 399 students. Valley Academy has 178. Finally, the last place I was at, and I spent 2 hours with Principal Lopez, and I thank them all very much for their generous time that they shared with me, and it was invaluable, and I would love to go back and plan to, but his is also a remarkable story. 26 years at Lewis and Clark, starting out as an aide and then a teacher and now the principal. And he has the only dual language program in all of Central Washington. And I can say he's kind of quiet about it, because he wants it to be perfected before he looks at it or wants people to see it as a model for other dual language programs. I can say that I did not know that we had this dual language program here. Had I known, I believe I would, my husband and I spoke about this afterwards, we would have put Avery in it. She was in Spanish immersion for 6 years prior to moving here. And had we known that opportunity was available, we would have loved to have continued her time in a dual language program. And boy, is it a remarkable program. I think we went to every classroom in his school while I was there, and it was really, really great. So again, thank you, Kim, for making these appointments happen, and Dr. Gordon, and again, great appreciation to these wonderful principals who are doing the most remarkable work. I was honored to see it. I'm in awe of what they're doing and proud of it. And I look forward to the other appointments that I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks for making the visit. It's a two-way street. I think you give encouragement and enthusiasm to the schools in the same way that they've made you as exuberant as you have been for the last couple of minutes. I do have a board communication that I would like to make. Much more boring, but nevertheless, I think quite deep, and actually, I'm pretty serious about it. On December the 7th, the Surgeon General of the United States issued an advisory on protecting youth mental health. I spent too little time in classrooms to be a reliable witness, but as we returned to in-person school this year, I think I noticed 3 trends. First, students showed great happiness at rejoining friends and teachers. They were ecstatic. Then I thought that the students I saw were more attentive, even in the elementary schools, more orderly in their lines than before COVID, as if they had a hunger to get back to full-time learning. Those are the good things. But we also have a lot of reports and observations of increases in pranks and mischief, sometimes serious, as we've had at the high school, which are maybe, I'm going to say, consistent with causes of harm like anxiety, alienation, and depression. And I've had at least one parent communicate that they see that kind of situation in their child. So if we're looking at that situation and just playing a very low-key few resources, I want to wish all a happy winter break. And I add a hope that we can use the time to try to be charitable, to give a bit more space, tolerance, and patience so that the holidays are a self-repair time, hope for some self-repair, from which we can and our children can return rested and strengthened for 2022. Thank you. The next item is Paul.
Thank you all. I just want to echo something that you said, Martin, to every board member. I absolutely agree with you, Martin. Our staff get a charge out of board members being there, from the concerts to the classrooms to the visits. They sincerely appreciate it. They love showing you what their school is about. It's why I believe in these one-on-one walkthroughs. I believe it's an important one, just from a relationship standpoint. You get to know these leaders, but they take you into classrooms, and they're not. And Catherine, I appreciate your comments. I really do. No one's hiding any classroom from our board members. You are literally open to see whatever you wanted to see within theirs, and they're having honest conversations with you. They give you that real world perspective from their perspective. They're sharing those pieces. So I just really want to honor our board for participating, for being there, for getting out there and engaging our schools. Next one, a little more challenging of a segue. We've experienced a number of threats and rumors of threats over these last few weeks. Believe stemming from the shooting in Michigan. However, we take every instance very seriously. We've moved our high school to an online platform because the threats mentioned our school. They mentioned a specific day. We're receiving other rumors of threats. What we're asking, I was on Coho Radio this morning. What I'm asking our students and our community members, if there is a credible threat, to please speak to your principals, speak to your teachers, call, email. It is really hard to submit when we submit the anonymous tips to really follow up, to understand what's happening in these situations. Oftentimes people will not respond back. We always respond to the individual saying, please let us know who you are. Please tell us if there are other concerns. We have incredible partners with the Wenatchee Police Department. I am so proud of our partnership, and even Chief Crown said a few weeks back that our partnership is at one of the best places it's been in a long, long time. And it's because we truly value them and what they bring, and we value our SROs. And I go back to the board's commitment to having our SROs in our district. It has made a significant difference, having our people on the ground who know our kids. But the Wenatchee Police Department, like every other organization, is struggling through COVID, struggling with staffing, struggling with all these pieces. But I sincerely appreciate Chief Crown's effort to make sure that he's supporting our students, our schools, our staff, and our community. For instance, we had a young person on Snapchat grab some statement that was made about some other place in the United States and forwarded that on to one of their friends as a joke. I am so proud of the young person who they and their family reached out to our school and to tell us, hey, this is happening. It allowed us to respond. It allowed us to respond accordingly. The police actually sent an officer to the home to make sure that everybody was okay, and then to try to figure out next steps. That worked, because then we also went out to the individual who sent it to check in, to make sure that they were okay, and to see if there was any other information. We're following up on these because safety, at the end of the day, safety's the superintendent's number one responsibility, to make sure that our students, our staff, and our community are safe within our schools. We're doing our best, but I am pleading with our students and our community members, if you hear something, it is credible, please call us, email us, or on the tip line, Give us a way to connect with you so we can work through this. Ron Brown has done an amazing job. He's taken this on as well under his umbrella, which is a pretty big umbrella anymore, as he reminds me at times. But he does it so incredibly well. I want to give Ron the microphone if he has one, just to kind of talk about where we're at in our district under his leadership and his efforts, and where we're going next steps with that classified position as well. Ron, yours.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, board. I want to echo a couple of things that a previous board did approve that are helping our schools, which is some of the safety security measures that were put in place using some of the leftover or some of the bond money from our previous successful bond. So I am partnering with the ESD. We joined the ESD co-op, the safety co-op. We have never been members of that. And I felt it was important to have a regional partner to help us through providing guidance, guidelines, direction that's similar to other school districts our size and in our area, but it also gives us another place for support. Mike Dingle is the fellow's name at the ESD who works with us. Our current partnership I am doing since I've taken this over about 6 weeks ago, doing walkthroughs of each school to do safety audits, essentially. So visiting all the schools. I've been to all the elementaries except for one. I have another one tomorrow. And the goal of those is to really develop what are our district expectations? Where do we need to be more consistent, more clear in our guidance to keep our kids and our staff safe? We have tremendous things in place. We just have to be a little better with our consistency between sites and our consistent approaches. We put in the video cameras, the vestibules, and some other buzz-in techniques for an example, and we need to solidify that process so that when you go to a building, it's handled the same way, in a safe way, and we don't know who's has harm in their heart when they come into a building, so we have to just be better at some of our internal processes. So one of the gaps that was identified is someone to really pay attention to that day to day. I do have a couple of other duties that I have to maintain across the district. So it would be very difficult for me to maintain attention where it's needed on the day-to-day safety and security needs of the school district. I've worked with the SROs and the SSOs recently to have some conversations about what do we need. I listen to the experts. I do not have a law enforcement background. But I think I have a common sense lens to look at things. And, I think we identified we need somebody day to day to pay attention to that. So I brought that to Paul. We had the conversation, and we are moving forward with creating a posting for a safety security coordinator. It is not going to be an officer. It's not going to be a commissioned officer necessarily. They're not going to be guarding things. They are going to be there to make sure we do what we say we're going to do to keep our kids safe, follow up on threats, follow up on drills, exercises, visitations to schools to make sure we are following our own processes and procedures. And unless we monitor that, it's very easy to become complacent. And nobody's fault for becoming complacent. It's just we think of teaching, learning, helping kids, loving kids, as Catherine mentioned earlier. And it's easy to overlook some of those basic physical security needs of our buildings and our kids because we're so focused on other things. So it is someone that's going to really help us out. We think we'll have that posted in January and be ready to fill that as we're crossing our fingers. We have some applicants that are highly qualified and ready to really jump in and start right off the bat and get us in a better place. Any questions from board?
Not a question, but maybe some questions, but a comment. This is not the first time this topic has come up. The board, a couple of boards ago, actually hired a director of safety and security who ended up leaving our district under some stressful tensions, internal tensions. So I'm glad to hear you acknowledge that you are not a law enforcement agent and that I hope the ESD is providing a list of specific things for us to look for you to look for and address and evaluate. So I'm glad about that. The other thing that was important to me in the past when we had this position was not only looking at the building, the safety and security of the building, but also the conditions of the building and what risks are there from, I remember, soffits that were loose and that kind of thing, or tripping hazards or blah, 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 that sort of thing. Are we and also adherence to policies regarding supervision on field trips and athletic events and that kind of thing. Are those all incorporated in this new position, or is it a more narrow focus on this round?
The policies and procedures regarding risk management and the monitoring of things that you directly mentioned, like the field trip requests or other safety issues, not just physical safety of the students and staff, but the physical plant, trips and falls, things like that. Our safety committees that meet every month in buildings or every quarter in buildings, they will take on some of that. I think we're going to prioritize the first mentioned safety items and get those very, very well taken care of, while I guess tiptoeing into making sure our risk management and our proactive steps are in place. But I don't want to say that it's going to fix everything immediately. It's going to be a process over time. But yeah, I believe with the collaboration with myself and with that person, we'll work on those risk management pieces to make sure we have the proactive policies and procedures in place to keep us from having accidents or having issues in the future.
And I would just highlight that we do the safety, the trip fall, those types of walkthroughs with Brian Brockie and with the ESD, Paul. I'm forgetting Paul's last name, but he's a safety. That's his expertise, and we contract with the ESD through that. So they walk through literally looking for those types of tripping hazards, and they're on a regular monthly basis rotation on that as well. So we're moving forward, putting pieces in place. Really looking forward to this additional individual joining our district.
I have a quick
sorry.
question. I actually appreciate the update. I think, there's been a lot of concern and a lot of questions from parents, just why is the district not talking more about this? So really appreciate the detailed update from both Ron and Superintendent Gordon. So in regards to the funding for this position, are we also planning on getting a new SRO to replace little Jared?
Yeah. And I'm not breaking news here. This is known. Officer Reinfeld has also submitted his resignation, and he's moving on to other pathways. 100% his decision, his life, and the little I've heard. If you know any police officer, it is an incredibly challenging role to serve each and every day. But I was super honored to know Officer Reinfeld in his role these last few years. He is, and he came into my office to let me know the other day. He said this job really saved him. He loved this job. He loved serving our students and our community in the way that we allowed him to serve our students. And if you know Officer Reinfeld, he is this big old dude, but one of the kindest humans on this planet. Really has a belief about how to do the SRO work, because that SRO work is not for every police officer. That is a very unique role, and it takes unique individuals to fill it. So we have, Ron, fill me in on the last name, Officer Corey Fuller. Officer Corey Fuller replaced the Officer Jared Shepard. Needing a lot of assistance here. So now they are recruiting right now an officer to replace Officer Reinfeld. They didn't give me any names, but they are very hopeful with a couple individuals that they are purposefully recruiting for that position. So we hope to have both of those up and running full-time again sometime in January, but that will be, we will sit on the interview like we have with others, but we'll take the lead from the police department.
I'm really sorry to hear that Jared
Yeah.
is leaving. He was a fabulous addition to our district, and I think the kids really loved and respected him, and he had a nice way about him. So that's sad news. Yeah.
Yeah, when he wanted to meet with me, I was like, oh, that's odd. But once I hear a story, I totally understand.
Barring him moving out of the area, is it possible he'd be available to consult with whoever is hired? I mean, could we enter a contract or something minimal so that, because it's such a skilled role and he was so very good at it, and not to say that, anyone can just step in and do it the same way, but the insights he would have over those so many years, I don't even know. I mean, it'd be something you'd have to float to him and see if he's interested, but I could see value in that, especially with two brand new guys, seeing some way to.
I think it's a great idea. Officer Corey Beller has been with us. We're talking 2 months, 2.5 months, 3, somewhere in there. So yeah, the learning curve. Yeah, that's absolutely something we can have a conversation about. All right, to a quick update, and I'm going to hand this one to Diana on the change in how we're doing our Spanish language for our board meetings. Diana.
Thanks, Paul. Really quickly, too, I just want to share that communication, we're all communicators. I think our district has done a great job this week and last week of ensuring that we have streamlined communication with our parents and families as it relates to reported threats and some of the issues that we've been dealing with. Those are not easy things. They're stressful for the entire system, but I want to thank our entire team for the work that they did. I also want to thank our parents too. We appreciate you and your thoughtfulness as we work through these issues, and know that student safety and security is our top priority at all times. And we're continuing to get better every single day in this work. Two, I want to say that the school board, you are communicators, you are powerful messengers, and it's great that you have those experiences in our schools. You can share those with your circle of influences, your communities, your families, people that you know, and that really helps to elevate our educators and the work that's being done. It's hard work, and it really helps to share those stories out with people in the community. So thank you for doing that. We're all communicators. In that vein, one thing that we are doing and something that we do constantly is always evaluating the effectiveness of our communication strategies and making sure that our diverse audiences are getting the information that they need, whether it's about school, whether it's about the district, or things that are going on. One opportunity that has presented itself is we do a board summary report. After each board meeting, a summary report is written in English and Spanish, and then we send that out to over 10,000 people on our email list. That includes parents, community members, a variety of other individuals. All of our staff receive a copy of that. So that is written in Spanish and English. We also provide the video link to our YouTube recording of the meeting, so people can watch the YouTube video if they would prefer. We have also been providing a Spanish audio translation of the video, so of the entire meeting. We've included that in that emailed summary that goes out. After some review and reflection, we feel that the audio translation is not being utilized to the greatest extent that it could be by our Spanish-speaking community. So it presented us with an opportunity to think differently about how we get that information out to our Spanish-speaking families. And so we are making a shift to transition to leverage our Spanish radio stations. We have a partnership with La Nueva. We have 2 regular weekly programs. One on Monday, our Cafecito program that plays at noon and provides regular updates. During that meeting, during that program, we will provide what we're calling kind of board briefs or board shorts, really condensed down bullet points, highlight reel, if you will, of things that happened at the board meeting. So that will be a part of their regular programming. They'll talk about new things that happened at the board meeting and things that our community really want to know. In addition, we'll be using our Live with Mr. Lopez, which is a program hosted by Lewis and Clark Principal Alfonso Lopez on Tuesdays at 7 a.m. on La Nueva. He will also share those board summaries, those board shorts in his programming as well. The effectiveness of this is that we expand our reach by leveraging the power of radio. It's a free medium. You don't have to have an email account. You don't have to have a computer to access that. And people can listen to the radio on their way to work, dropping off their kids, in the workplace. So it really does provide us with a great deal of flexibility. And we are hopeful that that will be an effective means to get that really high level, important information and decisions that are being made by the board out to our Spanish speaking community. So that's a shift that we're making. In addition to that, in our weekly newsletter that we send out on Fridays, WSD Weekly, we will continue to use that board short kind of idea, and we'll have a bulleted list at the bottom of each one of our WSD weeklies. And again, that goes out to about an audience of roughly 10,000 individuals that receive that. So we're continuing to improve our outreach to our Spanish-speaking families and really looking for ways that we can make sure they get the information that they need as valued members of the Wenatchee School District community. Paul?
Diana, thank you. Wrap it up. This was the longest superintendent report like ever. Just finish off with happy holidays. I am eternally grateful for our students, our staff, our parents, our community, and our Board of Education. But I really do hope everybody's able to take a moment to be able to enjoy the holidays, whatever that looks like for each person. But just gratitude for everybody in our community as we move forward. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everybody at the table and in front of the table. Thank you in the audience. Appreciate it. And with that, we will be meeting again the second week in January. Enjoy the winter break, and thank you very much.